So first of all, why do people ask in an indirect manner? Why don't we just ask? Is it because we haven't learned? Because we grew up in the environment?
I think it's because of probably both. We haven't learned, or some people grow up in in a space where there's more passive communication that's happening, or especially, or people, in a work environment. There's a lot of assumptions that are being made. I think when you ask somebody to do something and you don't fully ask for clarity, and people don't ask for clarity, or they don't ask for, or they don't want to appear as stupid or not smart enough to figure out the problem, or I'm gonna not ask for clarity because I don't want to frustrate my partner or my friend.
Okay, so that sounds like fear of asking for what you want, and as a result, people tend to default to an indirect way of asking.
Yes.
It is ironic that we do that to keep ourselves safe, but it actually can provoke some rejection or some defensiveness or some irritability.
Yes.
So is there something that you see that's like the classic irritable response, the classic frustrated response to an indirect ask?
I mean,
do
usually
people often say, why are you asking me that? Or I have no idea what you're talking about, or
people get defensive. People start to make assumptions.
What does defensive sound like for a lot of people? Is it like, I hate it when you ask me that, or
yeah,
oh wow,
or like, what do you mean, or where did that come from, or where did you get that?
Like just incredulous,
right? Just like annoyed, right? And so then that spins the conversation into like, well, what's actually happening for you?
Yeah.
Right. And then you lose communication.
Yeah.
And
because
both parties don't feel like they're being communicated.
Yeah.
Or heard. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Both parties don't feel like they're being heard.
Yeah.
And
because one person is upset or angry, and the other person is afraid of the anger, or maybe they're both angry.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
so,
all the things that we do in an effort to avoid the conflict.
I see.
Ultimately, it's like sleep begets sleep, right? It's like the conflict is going to naturally happen because there's not an agreement ahead of time about how to communicate.
Okay.
And so, one of the things that I've done is I have a friend that I communicate with, and we have made an agreement with each other that like if our communication isn't clear on either end, that we ask, and there's no, in the beginning of this process, it was like a learning curve for me because I would get defensive, and a shame would come up for me if I would, and it was like, well, what? And she's been awesome at like being over communicating with me about her reasons for where she's not clear, right? But now we've gotten to a point where she's like, I'm not clear what you're asking, right?
Whereas, are you saying that at first she would say, I'm not clear what you're asking, and you would feel those feelings of shame, or it would be difficult for you to articulate? Okay.
But once I started getting really into the practice of it and recognizing, because I grew up in like passive aggressive land, and
so
like
did I.
Very passive, and and there are a lot of assumptions being made, and nobody's communicating below the surface really, and so it's like, especially if you live with people who've known you for a long period of time, you start to make assumptions about how the other person's going to react or what they're going to say, so you don't open your mouth and you don't fully express yourself,
or you ask in a way that's indirect,
right?
So can we talk a little about some of the just one or two common ways that people ask indirectly when they're feeling really afraid, and then also talk about how you help people to learn to ask directly, and why that process is long? Like an example of.
So like one of the examples